Hi, this is Anna Imagination with a Healing Garden, and welcome to Shifting Perspectives. I went out last night, and I'm at a point when I go out now, I just don't want to talk. I love to just observe and listen, which is new for me because usually I want to be like right in there, and I am really socially inept. I mean, really socially inept. I know how to get along very well with people. It is definitely my weakness, is socializing with other people. It's the one thing that I just, and it's from the 40 years I was a slave. It was just the pure isolation. So that now I'm in a situation where I can start socializing and getting out more. And 40 years of almost complete isolation where I wasn't free to practice socializing. And we all have to practice socializing. This is huge for our development. There are things that you should do. There are things that we should be, and this is where things kind of go awry. When you're in a social situation, you very quickly learn what's acceptable and what's not. But when you are around people who are extreme black, white, extreme need to control, and extreme conformist, you can barely move without a correction being made. So you're overcorrected. And it's the overcorrection that becomes perspective abuse. What's supposed to happen is when you have your stable, solid boundaries, which are supposed to be in place by the time you are 8 years old. Just to give you an idea for perspective purposes, how significantly our perspective knowledge was neglected. That's a really, really good way of putting that. It's neglected perspective knowledge. And I have a conundrum right now. And I'm trying to articulate it for you. We require this perspective knowledge in order to step into social situations. We cannot socialize effectively without this perspective knowledge. We cannot. And that's the problem. Look around. Look around. How many people are abusing people? How many people are screaming at each other? How many relationships have we lost? How many friendships have just fizzled up? How many children are disowned from parents? How many of us get married and within a few weeks start talking about the next partner that we're going to have because we already know the one we're in isn't going to last because they don't last, we think. Friends come in, and in the back of our minds, we're thinking, I wonder how long this one's going to last. That's the default setting. 30-year-old people going, why can't I make friends? I don't understand why I can't make friends. People trying to date, people trying to find a partner, people trying dating apps, people trying social mixers, people trying, and no one's connecting, and no one knows why, and no one is questioning it. We've stopped being curious. And when we stop being curious, we stop noticing, we stop thinking. We require perspective knowledge to socialize. And the first 8 years of our lives are supposed to be preparing us for socializing. And it's not happening. It has never happened in the last 1,000 years. This is a lost subject. So I stepped into this social mixer last night for polyamorous nonconformist people. Yay! Like they were my people. They were all Most of them were a perspective 6. Most of them were a perspective 6. A few perspective 5s, but not really. Most were perspective 6. So I was in a solid 6 environment last night. So I felt comfortable. I was able to immediately drop my guard. And I knew that a couple of my friends were going to be there. And I'm the kind of person that if I reach out and go to other people, I'm adding a lot more on my plate than I can chew, because I'll just say it, I'm popular. I'm very popular. I exude an energy in real life. You've picked it up. I've gotten so many people commenting, "Oh my God, I love your energy." Yeah, it's bad. It's really like, and this is contained. In real life, it's something else. So I learned not to go looking for people because it exhausts me by the time the crowd comes in. And sure enough, I have people just bombarding me. So I've learned how to navigate it. My partner has a joke that everybody loves Anna, and Anna's really over it. And that's it. It was fun at first. And then I did a psychoanalyst, I psychoanalyzed myself and realized why it was fun and why I wanted it. And then it wasn't so much fun anymore. We think popularity is what we want. We think that's what we need. We think it's going to look like a certain way. We watch TV and we see what popularity looks like. Popularity is just, it's when people are attracted to the material side of you, not the real side of you. They feel my energy, so they just love it. I exude a real, I'm comfortable, you can tell me anything feeling. And I got that last night twice, where people just, and I get this so much because people just feel like they can tell me everything. And I've heard so much from strangers, and I've adapted to it. So I sit down and I can feel on this side of it my ineptitude. I can feel my inability to socialize properly. I don't know what to say. I have no idea what to say. I have no idea how to break the ice. I have no idea. So I shut down and I just follow my whim. But I've learned a long time ago that dating for me is hard. And I wasn't there to date. I was there to just get out of the house. I sat down and I watched all the perspectives, and I just observed them interacting with each other. This gentleman came over, he sat down next to me, and he was telling me about his theories on dating and the lifestyle. And I listened to everything he had to say, and I realized he was telling me about his perspective of psychology without knowing anything about me. So he did not know to elaborate. But I listened to him, and he was analyzing human behavior. And then I found my friend, and we had a really wonderful sit-down talk about just catching up. And I got to know him very, very well. This is a friend who I've known for 2-3 years. And he finally opened up and talked to me, or maybe I finally opened up. We started exchanging vulnerabilities, and we got to know each other. And he told me, when we started talking, I was listening to what he was saying, and I'm like, interesting. Now he's now telling me about his perspective on behavior and how he sees things. And it was extraordinary to hear. He was describing perspective psychology to me, and he was right. He was just feeling it, though. But he couldn't articulate it because he didn't have the words or the knowledge. But he nailed it on the head. He described it as, it's like people have secret numbers. I almost lost it when he said that. He's like, it's like they have secret numbers, and everyone knows each other's number, but it's something you feel. That's right. And he's like, they do these science experiments where people are given these numbers, and the numbers will gravitate toward each other. And you're always like right on, or you're maybe 2 numbers off, but never more than 2. I know. Yeah. And I didn't say anything. I just listened, like, because I'm listening to a 6th perspective describe what you find out when you're in the 8th, 9th perspective. It was extraordinary. And then I had this beautiful lady come over to me later, and she explained that she was nervous to approach me because I was pretty and because I was very, very comfortable and inviting, and she loved my energy. So we talked for a while, and then her husband came over and we talked more. And again, they started to talk to me about their social life and how they navigate these. And they talked to me about psychology. They told me from their perspective how behaviors work. Everyone's talking about human behavior, but no one has perspective knowledge. And every one of them presented a situation where, so I was with this person in this situation, and this is what happened, and I can't figure it out. And every single person that I spoke to last night said the same thing. They all said, I couldn't figure out this. The search situation got to this point, and then I just couldn't figure it out. And they were trying to figure out human behavior, but they were doing so without perspective knowledge. So one particular, my friend, I said to him, do you know what I do? And he's like, no, I have no idea what you are. I have no idea what you do. Known him for 2 years. And I'm like, yeah. So I told him what I did. And then I explained perspective psychology. And he went, huh. And he just sat back and watched the room. And he just watched the room. And I'm looking at the world going, how have we made it this far without this information? I don't understand it. I was walking back to the subway after, and I was listening to these 2 girls talking, and they're talking about human behavior. They're analyzing someone's behavior. I can't believe he did that. I can't believe he said that. He was so rude. Did you know that our manners are defined by our perspective? Our manners are defined by our perspectives. So if you are in a perspective 2, your manners are going to be X. But if you're in a perspective 5, your manners are going to be Y. And if you are in a perspective 6, your manners are going to be Z. So when you find somebody who doesn't have manners, what you found was somebody who's in a different perspective, and their registered of manners is just different than yours. Very similar to going to a different country and finding out that their etiquette is different. Perspective defines our manners. So I was talking to this one gentleman last night, and he revealed himself as being a teacher of sociology. Yes! So we were able to sit down and break apart sociology. And I found that I was starved for all the different perspectives. I found that I was more interested in just hearing the different perspectives than actually talking about I did not want to talk about my own at all. I still don't want to talk about my own anymore. I don't want to talk about my own anymore. I would much rather hear everybody else's perspective at this point. Now that I have figured out mine, and I feel like that's all this was I wanted to understand my own perspective. And I do. And I did. And I went, okay. But now I want to hear everyone else's. I want to hear all the different ways They interpret a situation, but I don't want to go back to two perspective and hear theirs. I've heard enough of two perspectives. I've heard enough of fourth perspectives. I want to hear other six perspectives and other eights and sevens and nines and tens. I realized last night that we need to socialize. And the reason why we need to socialize is because we need to compare perspectives. We need to hear the perspectives of others. And I could feel myself coming out of my perspective cocoon. I'm going to use that word, perspective cocoon. And I hear people doing this when they travel. They deliberately go to a different country to gain a different perspective. People who travel understand this. People who do not travel are in a perspective cocoon. It's why we needed to be in New York City. It's because you don't have to travel to get out of a different perspective. With New York City, you can just be in New York City and you will get. My partner and I were once talking about what it is about New York City that we love. And I explained to him that the world is out there. But why travel the world when you can just sit in New York City and it comes to you? And it does. And he said, now he's been to over 35 countries. And he said, you know, the reason why I love New York City is because I have traveled to 30 plus countries. And being in New York City is like being in all of those countries at the same time. They really do all come to you here. So instead of you going to all these different countries and tracking each and every one of them down, just be in New York and they come to you. So that's why we live in New York City. It's because we don't have to hunt down different cultures. We can just be in the street and poof, there they are. What I really want right now is to just go outside, introduce myself to a random stranger and say, my name is Anna Imagination. I am something very different. And I seek perspective. And I'm doing a social experiment. And I thought about my knowledge, and then I thought about my ineptitude when it comes to socializing. I am officially into the research side where I am now taking my knowledge and applying it to social situations, which I'm really excited about. I want to understand how to make friends. I want to break the code on how an adult can make a friend. I want to understand the science and the psychology of making a friend. But I can feel it. If I were to put my social age, this is very humbling. My social age is a 2. My social age is a 2. We have social ages. My social age is a 2. And I'll tell you where I'm seeing this because this is extraordinary. It's like you have the 8 perspectives. I'm going to go by just the first 6 right now because the first 6 perspectives are the core that's the man stage. So you have your 6 stages, your 6 ethical cores. Now you have to learn those internally as an individual. And then you need to learn them in a social setting. And I think you have to learn them in a social setting. You should ideally learn them in a social setting and then learn them in a romantic setting. So that when we're children, we're supposed to learn them, and I want to say up until 8 years old. So from ages 1 to 8, we're supposed to be learning these 6 ethics. Let's go to the 8 stages. Let's not do 6, let's do 8. because 8 is when boundaries happen. So 1 through 8, we're supposed to internalize these on an individual level. And then we're supposed to find somebody who's also learned them, friendships, basic social settings. And we're supposed to relearn them applied to a social setting, a casual social setting. It must be casual. And that's what school is supposed to be. So that by the time we are 16 years old, if we've done the 8 stages internalized individually and then again internalized on a social setting so that we know we've mastered the art of taking these core ethics and utilizing them in social settings, then we can implement them in a romantic setting, which is like stage 3 of social growth, of ethical growth. But that's not, of course, what's happening. We're not even getting the 8 stages, the 8 ethics as children. And then when we get to social and casual settings, it's chaos. And then we're looking for romantic partners more as prosthetics to the lack of our ethics. Yes, when you lack an ethic, you seek out a person to act as a prosthetic to supplement for the missing ethic. I do a whole thing on the romantic paradigm when it comes to that. So we end up seeking out prosthetics to supplement our lack of ethics as opposed to actually finding a partner who's matched to us. And the world is a mess because we lack perspective knowledge. We don't understand we don't understand our own behavior. Psychology is just the study of human behavior. But it is such an abandoned, dismissed topic. It's something I've been trying to figure out for literally since I was like 15 years old. Sooner. I was 12 going, why aren't we studying psychology? This is human behavior. We are humans. Why aren't we studying why we behave? And it's just not prioritized. So I get into the social setting, and one of the things that I love doing, one of the things that really hits me is I'm going, why do I have ABC despite this vast amount of knowledge in psychology? And that to me is a huge curiosity. I wouldn't call it a red flag. I would call it a curiosity. And there's a huge difference between curiosities and red flags. And I started looking into it. And when I started looking into it, I realized that it's because I am 2 years old in my social age. So I might be a 10. Basically, I found another misalignment. So I found a 10. I'm a 10 in my ethics. But in my socializing, I'm a 2. In my business, I'm a 10. In my business, I'm probably closer to an 8. I can feel that misalignment. My business, it's an 8. My environment's a 10. My ethics are a 10. My subconscious mind is a 10. But my social skills are a 2. My business is an 8. So I can see now, oh, there's the misalignment, I say to myself. That's where I need to make adjustments. Because that's where it's out of alignment. So I need to do some serious work on my social skills. I wrote to my partner last night after the event, and I said to him, I don't think you and I have any idea how to socialize with others when we are together. And he said, yes, that is exactly it. That is our truth. When he and I are together, we have no idea how to socialize with anybody else. We both have social anxiety. It's because we both have, we're both a 2 in our social skills. And I'm eager and excited. And this is where he struggles because he has physical panic attacks whenever he's in a situation. Not every time, but he struggles. Now, I have a lot of experience with stage fright because actress. So I know how to jump in and overcome stage fright. And that's pretty much what it is. Whenever you're in a social setting, it's a shot of stage fright. So I'm familiar with stage fright. I'm familiar with how to overcome it. And he just doesn't have the experience. And it's practice. And I know what it is. I loved pulling it apart. I just need to go to more events because I loved pulling this apart. It's unknowns. There was just so many unknowns. How do you start up a conversation? What kind of a person are you going to get? And this one gentleman walked up to me and he said, "Hi, I want to talk to you." And he goes, and I delayed coming over here because everything I wanted to say to you just sounded like a cheap pickup line. And I just want to talk to you. And I loved the authenticity. And I told him that. I said, "Thank you for being honest. Like that is it. Thank you for not trying to blow shit up my ass. Thank you for being real." And he went over a couple different thoughts in his head, like, well, I was going to propose this, I was going to say this, but he's like, everything just sounds like a cheap pickup line. And I said, there's a difference. The authenticity, the realness of, I want to talk to you. That's it. Those are the words. I just want to talk to you. I want. So vulnerable. And that's really it. We have to be vulnerable with strangers. It's literally the willingness and the risk to be vulnerable with strangers. And we're in a coffee shop, you're in a bar, you're somewhere, and you see another person responding. You see another person shifting and moving. And you want to say something, but you're terrified. And you have no idea how to navigate. It's a solid unknown. And I have this thing in my head saying, just do it. Just get out there and do it. Exposure therapy. That's exactly it. It's solid exposure therapy. So I see me doing this now. Just, I want to talk to you. And what are we afraid of? And I can feel it. It's anywhere from, I don't want to get caught in a conversation that I want to be over, that I can't get out of. I don't want to be caught in a situation where it turns out the person isn't entertaining or interesting to me. And I don't want to have to completely shut down the conversation because I don't like the person after all. How do you navigate that without being an asshole? How do you, and it's definitely a feeling like I'm invested in their emotions. I don't want to hurt their emotions. So we have this behavior of just don't talk to them. Just avoid it. Just give them space while we figure our shit out. And opportunities come and they go. And you're still sitting there going, I want to talk to somebody. I want to connect. And we don't even know how to connect. I do. I'll be covering that. And that's just it. That was on my mind last night. I sat there and I went, I want to connect with people. I know exactly how to connect with people. I know exactly the process that needs to occur to connect with people. But I am hesitant to even say hello. Why? And I just sat there analyzing my own behavior, watching it. And sure enough, I had people like coming over to me. So I don't have to work at socializing because people just come to me. But I don't want people to just come to me. I want to be able to walk up to other people and say, hi, I want to talk to you. That's it. It's really simple. I want to talk to you. I want to find out if you're someone I can connect with. I like that. I want to explore. But then we immediately default to the, so where are you from? What do you do for a living? And I don't know about you, but every time I hear those questions, I cringe. I just go, ugh. Because it's so cliche. It's so inauthentic. It's so programmed. We're just regurgitating the same language. And no one means it. No one is, and even if you mean it, it feels like you don't, because the words have come to become meaningless. So we don't want to use the same words anymore. I do something different called, tell me about what passions drive you. What passions drive your dreams? I ask people that because I'm just so against the whole, what do you do for a living? And the thing is, and this one gentleman last night articulated this beautifully. He said, I hate asking people what they do for a living because in most cases, it does not reflect anything about who they really are. It tells you what they are doing currently to survive. And that's not reflecting at all on who the person actually is. And in most cases, you bring up a topic that they don't want to talk about because they're miserable. So, and you can see that and you can feel that. When you're asked, so what do you do for a living? A lot of people just go, ugh. And you can feel that just dread energy come off of them. And you think, oh, no, you don't think, you feel, oh, I just made them feel lousy because I brought up a painful topic for them. And that's all we've got. We go to the next person. So what do you do for a living? And we feel that same feeling again of, oh, I got to talk about what I do for work. No one wants to talk about what they do for work. No one wants to talk about their job. No one. I love my job. I love my career. I love what I do. And I didn't want to talk about it last night. I got there and he asked me, like, it was a roundabout. He found a way to ask the question without asking, what do you do for a living? I said, guess. Let's play 20 questions. You try and figure out what I do for a living. And it was really refreshing. It was really refreshing. And as soon as, well, he never figured it out. But as soon as we got to that point where I finally broke it down and explained to him what I do, it was this, we're talking about this. Why are we talking about work? No one wants to talk about work. What else can we bring to a conversation? What else can we bring to a conversation? Like, seriously. And I was thinking about this last night. I can talk about psychology. I can talk about psychology, but I don't want to. I mean, I love talking about it here. This is my psych space. Oh my God, do I love talking about it here. But when I'm at a bar, I don't want to talk about it. And I'm sitting here going, how do I get away from this conversation? And I was talking to somebody about it last night, somebody else. This is like the fourth person I met. And they were doing the whole, so what do you do for a living? And I very bluntly said, I don't even remember what I said to him. I don't remember what I said. I know that eventually within a few, like 5 minutes, we were on psych because he was talking about what he was noticing. Everyone's analyzing psychological behavior. And it was a wonderful conversation, actually. And I said, I can't shut it off. I cannot shut this off. I wish I knew how, but it's psychology. Everything is human behavior. If I want to shut it off, he's like, you have to be alone. I said, I analyze my own behavior. If there's no one around to analyze and process, why am I doing this? What does this mean? Oh, there's my subconscious mind doing Freudian slips all over the place to tell me that it's actually wanting this over here and I'm not paying attention to that. Thank you, identity. Like, that's how I am when I'm alone. I cannot turn off the psych. And I feel it right now. So I burn out. And then I go to social events to try and refresh. And I got nothing to talk about except psychology. And everyone's talking about their psychology and their analysis of human behavior. And they're trying to figure out, what is this? What's going on? Because I noticed this when I day and I noticed this when I day. And they're just trying to figure out human behavior. And I'm sitting here listening to what they're saying, loving what they're saying, and I'm analyzing it going, oh, this is what they need to understand, and this is what they don't understand. So and it's like, I shut it off. And I thought last night, what else can I talk about? What can I talk about that's not human psychology? And I said, knitting. I can talk about knitting. I can talk about my interests. And then I started thinking about my interests, aside from psychology. You know, I did this. I actually broke down when you are looking for a relationship, what you should be looking at. And what you should be looking at is first your interests. That's something we actually get right. We are supposed to be comparing interests, not comparing like shopping. And that's just it. There's a lot of people who are doing comparison shopping, and you can feel when they're doing comparison shopping. So it's not authentic. It's asking a person interests with agenda, and you can feel the difference. It's like, you don't want to know about me. You want to know if I'm a partner for you. And it's so hurtful because people are asking you about you, but they're not asking because they want to know you. They're asking because they're asking for themselves. And you can feel that energy difference. The agenda changes everything. So you're supposed to talk about your interests. You're supposed to determine genuinely, what are your interests? And then beyond the interests, you're supposed to talk about your ethics, the thing that no one ever talks about. Instead, we talk about religion and politics, which everyone knows you're not supposed to talk about religion or politics. But that's it. You're supposed to talk about your ethics because your ethics are directly linked to your interests. And I was there last night. And because I had so much social anxiety, it all shut down and it didn't work. And I knew this. Now, there's a difference between knowing something and putting it into practice. Think of it as test anxiety. That's exactly what this is. And test anxiety, social anxiety is actually test anxiety. It's the, do you have enough knowledge to apply this on the spot in an improv situation to see how much you actually know? Socializing is a test anxiety. And it's just constantly exposing yourself to that socializing until you're used to it. And then once you're used to it, you're like, oh, I get this now. All right. And you develop exposure. You basically just practice. You have to practice. But we don't know what to practice. We don't know how to practice because we're not taught, because people don't know, because we have neglected perspective knowledge. And because we have neglected perspective knowledge, we don't know what we're supposed to be practicing in a social setting. So this is what we're supposed to practice. We are supposed to practice talking about our interests, being vulnerable, being honest. Now, mind you, we're supposed to be doing this with strangers. It is fucking scary, right? This is fucking scary because you have to be vulnerable. You have to be honest. You have to be authentic with strangers. And they don't have these rules. No one has rules. All we have is a bunch of improvisation. And the improv isn't working because look at the world, it's a mess. I need a podcast that is look at the world, it's a mess. Look at that is so catchy. Look at the world, it's a mess. I love that. That's going to become like the name of my book or something. It's a mess. Look at the world, it's a mess. And so when you go into a social setting, and I'm going to do this, this is like me thinking when next I go, this is what I'm going to do. When I next go into a social setting, I'm going to think about what interests I have that I want to talk about, not what other people would find interesting, what I want to talk about. So go in with preparation, prepare. No one's preparing, we're weaning it, right? Let's prepare this. What are our interests? My interests that aren't psych, music. Okay, I can talk about music. I don't want to talk about music. I hate talking about music. I hate talking about music because I talk about opera, ballet. I talk about music theory. No one ever talks about that stuff except one person, and that's literally musicians, and even musicians. But now I'm talking about their work, you know? Now I understand why that conversation never works, because the only ones who can understand me are the people who have to talk about their job, and they don't want to do that. That's why that's not why I didn't become a musician. I did not become a musician for trauma reasons. I was traumatized out of wanting to be a musician. That is why I did not become a musician professionally. So yeah, What interests do you have that you can prepare for when next you socialize? The other thing is have ready the phrase, I want to talk to you. Use the boundary. I don't want to talk about work. It's not, I don't want to talk about work. That's a boundary. That is a boundary. Use it. I don't want to talk about work. And if it's like this, and this is perspective this is perspective abuse that we do to ourselves. We are so programmed to do this in a social setting that we subject ourselves to more perspective abuse on autopilot unconsciously because it's what everybody else is doing. This is self-afflicted perspective abuse. Is forcing yourself to talk about your job at a social setting that's supposed to be fun when you really don't want to talk about your job. That is self-perspective abuse. It's a boundary you're supposed to be setting. If you don't want to talk about your job, say it. No one wants to talk about their job, but everyone's afraid to say, can we just agree not to talk about jobs tonight? No one wants to. So that's it. We're not going to talk about work anymore when I'm in a social setting. And if I want to talk to someone, I'm going to say, excuse me, I want to talk to you. There's something about you that I got a social cue from that tells me, I think I'd love and I would enjoy connecting with you. I want to use that word. I think, or I feel, use the words feel, don't use think anymore. There's a reason why I'm doing that. I'll explain in another video. I feel like we could connect. Now, here's the thing, and this is a problem in New York City. It's specifically a problem in New York City. The phone number exchange. We do not exchange phone numbers here. We don't exchange phone numbers until we decide we're at a point where we want to consciously meet up at a place. But up until that point, you have to hope you randomly run into them again X amount of times at different events. And I think the reason why, and this is all subconscious, this is all done automatically with everybody in New York City. I think it's because if it's not on your daily routine or your setup, then you're going to have to go out of your way. Now, in New York City, going out of your way is a big deal. It is a big deal. There's one joke going around that if you are not on my train line, we will never have a relationship, which means I'm on the N line, which means anyone who is not on the N line, officially the N line is the train, is the subway. If you are not on the N line, it's not going to work. Because now, like last night, I had to go to the J line. So I went to the N to the J to get to where I was going to go. And it's a pain in the ass. And suddenly, I call it, this is my own graph. So there's something called the pain in the ass factor. I can't remember what I call it. This is something I created like 2 years ago. And it's one of my more amusing graphs. So the higher something is a pain in the ass, the less likely someone is to do it. And you have to find this nice ratio, this perfect point on the graph of you want the incentive, but it can't be too much of a pain in the ass. And once it receives that level of officially a pain in the ass, we're done. So it's very much the culture here. Is as soon as you achieve a certain point of, wow, this has officially gotten too complicated, it's officially too much of a pain in the ass, we're done. And living off of someone's subline is it. In New York City, if you are not on someone's subline, you're done. So when you make friends here, you have to make sure they're on the same, like, okay, I'm at this event. There they are. Let's see if it happens again. Oh, we're at 2 events now, and there they are. 3, 4 events, 5 events. Now you start to realize, hey, I can have a social life with this person. And this is done all subconsciously. This is just how the culture in New York City has just kind of molded into this. And if you don't know it, if you're new to New York, you're out of the loop. So this is like one of those hidden psychological cultures of New York City that you have to live here to understand, to see. So once you get to a certain, and it takes about 2 years. It takes about 2 years to realize, oh, we're on the same frequency. It's literally like a social frequency. It is exactly that. It's a social vibe. It's a social frequency. And you learn quickly that if someone's not on the same social vibe as you, you're not going to connect. You're not going to see them. Now that pain in the ass factor is way up there, and the relationship is going to require a lot of work even to get it off the ground. You're done. So you want to make sure they're in the same social vibe with you. And it doubles beautifully as, oh, we have like interests. So you have like interests and the social vibe is there. The people that I talked to, it was a polysocial event. So I got the impression that they were very much hoping to plant a seed of friendship. And now we're in the social setting of let's see how, but they live in Jersey, which is basically a death sentence in New York City. When someone lives in Jersey and you live in New York, it's a death sentence. So it was like this massive understanding and the flex and the it was just amazing. Oh yeah, I'm totally diving into the socials now when it comes to psychology. So now I'm going to take all this shit that I learned and I'm going to analyze social behavior now. Welcome to the social section. Oh yes, shifting perspectives, socializing, relationships, friendships. Oh, yeah. I'm done with the individual study. Oh, I'm so glad my sex studies are not done. Now I have more work to talk about. I'm very excited. Okay. All right. But I have to go out and socialize now. Oh, I'm going to crack this code. How to make friends. How to make friends. I want to know, how do you make friends after 30? This is what children do. Children naturally do it. You have to do it with your instinct. Oh, that's hard. Because you have to be vulnerable. All right, I'm going to shut this down because I have lots to think about now. So if you love shit like this, subscribe, follow, like, grab that little ding bell thing down at the bottom going ding, 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 get a notification, grab that thing. And if any of this resonated with you, comment below. Let me know what you want to know more about. Let me know what part resonated with you. And engage, engage, engage. Thank you so much. I may the kindest of words always find you. Wow.